Hey students, so in this lesson we're going to look at selective breeding of certain traits. And for that we can really focus on things like dogs. You see, like humans, for instance, can influence characteristics and how common they become. An example of this is dog breeding, okay? You guys are probably familiar with dog breeds and cat breeds and really like what makes them different? Well, here's the thing. All dogs are dogs. I mean, they're all the same. Okay, and they really just have some different traits that make them look different, sometimes behave different. Those traits are selected for. Now, humans have started this a long time ago in dogs and in cats and a lot of other animals. The process is called domestication. So humans take traits that they want and they breed individuals with those traits together to try and have those desirable traits become more common in their kids. It's important to note that the humans don't create new traits, okay? We just select them once the traits are there. Once the trait's there, if we decide that we like it, sometimes we can find another dog with a similar trait and breed them together so that trait becomes more common, okay? But here's the thing. Humans are not creating the traits. That's done through mutations. That's done through DNA changing and causing that new trait to occur. So here's some examples of some different alleles in the trait of hair color. So hair color in the case of Labrador retrievers is either going to be yellow or golden. We call it a yellow lab. They could also be brown hair colored. We call that a chocolate lab. And they could also have a really dark black hair color, and we call that a black lab. Now this is not unheard of in a lot of different dog breeds, okay? Here's the interesting thing, like females, for instance, when they give birth to puppies, they don't just have one puppy. Usually they have many puppies. And really we can see variations of coats in these many different puppies that are born from a couple parents. And so in your next slide, I give you an example. We have a yellow male who's bred to a brown female. And if you look at the offspring on the right, they all ended up being brown and 0 of them ended up being yellow. So it's very interesting. You have a trait in a parent that doesn't show up at all in the kids, right? We've seen that before, but here's a different example. So you can have parents with the same color. So in this case, we have brown, and those two dogs end up having brown puppies, but also yellow puppies. That might tell you a little bit about something about how which allele is dominant and which allele is recessive. Think about that as we go into the next one here. Here's an example of a black lab and another black lab, male and female. So these both parents are black. They end up having all 3 different colors of Labrador retrievers. They have black lab puppies, they have brown Labrador puppies or chocolate labs, and they have yellow lab puppies as well. So understanding kind of like what the parents had and the grandparents had and the great-grandparents had is really helpful in predicting maybe what colors end up showing up in the puppies when you have them. And this is something that dog breeders and cat breeders look at when they are breeding individual dogs or cats. What is the family pedigree or history? And they can then predict what possible outcomes there could be for puppies or kittens, okay? So given that and the information that I just told you, this asks you to think about like what is dominant and what is recessive in the hair color of Labrador retrievers. The last 3 examples I gave you should give you some insight into which traits are dominant, which ones are recessive. Go ahead and look back through slides 6, 5, and 4 in order to try and figure out the recessive traits and the dominant ones, and then just explain how you know. Like, how do you know that, right? Provide some evidence support your thinking is what this says. Here is a little video about dog breeding, and you go ahead and click on it. You watch it. It's about 4 minutes long, and then I ask you a question like, have you ever seen mixed breed dogs like a golden and a poodle? That's going to make a golden doodle. You can have other, we call designer dog breeds, where we mixed one dog breed with another dog breed to get different traits. What do you think this means, okay? Have you ever heard somebody say that, like, hey, this is a purebred lab, or this is a purebred Doberman Pinscher? Like, what do you think that means? Put that in there. Maybe check out the video first before you go ahead and answer that question But take a look at it. Here's the cool thing. They're all just dogs, right? So here's an example of some different dog breeds that are out there. We have artificially selected these breeds. People have selected traits that we want to become more common. And usually have some goal in mind. So I have 2 retrievers in my house, and those retrievers are supposed to have a really soft mouth, so that they don't damage like a bird that they're bringing in. My retrievers have webbed feet, so they swim through the water really well. My retrievers have a double coat of hair to keep them warm when they are wet, a kind of a wiry outer coat and a thick, downy, soft undercoat. Okay, and these are traits that people who are hunting in Canada really wanted in their dogs who were retrieving birds with them, right? Stay warm in the winter, stay warm in the water, stay dry in the water, and also have just an instinct for going and getting things that fall down or look like they're thrown. Okay, so these are traits that are specific to my dog breed, but we have lots of different traits bred into dogs based on what we wanted them to do and what someone needed the dog to do. Okay, so we have herding, for instance, we have working, etc. But here's the thing. If you take a dog that has a trait and you take another dog that also has that trait, sometimes those dogs could be closely related to each other. If your neighbor down the street has a dog with a certain color hair and this other neighbor has a dog with a certain color hair, they might breed them together to make a dog with a certain color hair. And if you want a dog with that color hair, you might have a puppy that has a similar colored hair and breed it to them. But anyway, since you're all close together, there might be what we call inbreeding, where people are, the dogs are kind of like close relatives of one another. And when that happens, when you have small groups of individuals that are ended up interbreeding, sometimes we also, artificially select defective genes, ones that come along with hair color or the desirable trait, but things that aren't desirable, if that makes sense. So we're trying to get a desirable trait by breeding these dogs together, but sometimes along with that desirable trait comes undesirable things. So here's some examples in Labrador retrievers. You're looking for a big, powerful dog. We want dogs that can spot things in the water really well. We want dogs with webbed feet. We want dogs that are strong so they can swim through water and push through ice. But along with that comes a few things like hip and elbow dislocation or dysplasia. Their eyes can be clouded. They lose their eyes, or eyesight, I should say. Heart disease. They can be quite large. Again, they're quite powerful and we want them to be big. So sometimes they suffer from obesity and diabetes. My sister has German Shepherds. I will say that they have had both hip and elbow dislocations in their older, larger dog. I haven't seen eye clouding, but sometimes they also suffer from epilepsy, bone growth diseases. These are undesirable characteristics that sometimes come along with a purebred dog because those purebred dogs have been closely bred as a group. They're closely related to one another, and sometimes when it happens, undesirable things come along. So I go ahead and ask you guys to take a look at that table and make a little bit of sense of it and see some of those undesirable traits that come along with the desirable ones. Now this one here just asks you to identify some specific goals that are part of artificially selecting traits for dogs. Okay, so what are the what are we doing it for? You can grab these little check marks and come over here and put them in place. If you've watched that video, that'll give you some more information into why we selective breed dogs. And the last slide here, what do you think the effect of selective breeding on dogs is? There's a lot of them, but first of all, we can change the way the dog looks and behaves to suit our needs, okay? You want a dog that is really good at pulling a sled? We can get a dog that does that likes to run, likes to pull. You want a dog that has a very soft mouth and has a retrieving instinct? We can get that too in retrievers. You can breed desirable traits. The other effect is sometimes undesirable things come along with those desirable traits, and they also become more common, which is a negative effect for those dogs. Explain what you figured out on the inbreeding and the effect that it has on the organism. How could artificial selection be used in a population of albino squirrels? So again, inbreeding is when you breed closely related individuals. Sometimes undesirable characteristics become more common when you do that. And when that happens, you perpetuate or you make those undesirable traits more common. Okay. I know if you are buying from a reputable breeder, they try and make sure that those traits are not bred or not found in their parents so that the kids don't have them either. So it's important to buy from people who know what they're doing and understand genetics and the different traits that come along with breeding. How could artificial selection techniques be used in a population of albino squirrels? Well, like if you wanted to line breed a whole bunch of albino squirrels and get just a purebred line of albinos, grab some albino squirrels, breed them together, they are going to have albino babies. And if you breed those babies to other albino squirrels, they're going to have albino squirrels. After a while, you can perpetuate or, cause albinism to become more common in those albino squirrels. Okay.